We hope you enjoy today's story. I was driving home from work, my mind already shifting gears towards the mundane routine of the evening. But today, I had a detour planned. I needed to stop by the Red Cross to donate blood, a task I undertake every 3 months. After scheduling a time, I entered the building and registered, settling in to wait for my turn. The process began with the usual routine. They ran my details through the computer and asked me a barrage of questions. I knew them all by heart, answering no to each one. Having donated 6 gallons before, the questions were always the same. No hospital visits, no trips abroad. My record was clean. The only person I'd been intimate with in the last 20 years was my wife, with whom I'd shared 18 years of marriage. Yes, we'd been intimate before marriage, like most people. The sexual history questions were straightforward too. No venereal diseases, no HIV, no other sexually transmitted infections. I noticed the nurse's discomfort as she asked these questions, but it was part of her job, so we moved on to the regular checklist. Then, she mentioned she would be back after checking the updated donor list. When she returned, her expression was more serious than usual. "What's wrong, Mary?" I asked, sensing something was off. "Do I have low iron or something else?" Mary looked down and hesitated before speaking. "Jim, Judy came in this morning to donate blood, but she was rejected." I frowned. "What's that got to do with me, Mary?" "Well," she said slowly, "according to her form, she had sex within the last 3 months with someone who tested positive for HIV this morning. That means anyone she's had sexual contact with could be infected and won't be able to donate blood for a year." My heart sank. "I'm really sorry, Jim," Mary added, her voice soft with sympathy. "Wait a second, Mary. Did Judy tell the Red Cross about this herself?" "No, Jim. When someone is found to be a carrier of HIV, they're asked to provide the names of their sexual partners from the past year. This list is confidential but is used by the Red Cross to monitor infected blood." "So, are you saying my wife was on that carrier list?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Yes, Jim. The carrier was supposed to inform their partners about their status so they could seek medical advice. According to your wife's form, she was never notified." "Who was this carrier who claimed to have been with my wife, Mary?" "I'm sorry, Jim, but I can't disclose that. You're the second contact on the list, and you'll have to get that information from your wife. I'm really sorry, Jim. I just can't say more. I hope you understand." "Mary, we've been friends for a long time, and I won't press you further. But what are the chances I'm infected?" "The odds of you not being infected are quite high. Since you were the second contact and used protection, you're at a lower risk, but it's still best to get tested." I thanked Mary and headed home, my mind racing. How would I confront Judy? After 18 years of marriage and a daughter about to start college, what would I say? We had always been close, sharing intimate moments regularly. Just last week, we had an unforgettable night together. We had gone out for dinner, gotten a bit tipsy, and enjoyed a passionate evening. Now those memories felt tainted, marred by this terrible revelation. I arrived home to find dinner nearly ready. Beth, our daughter, had started preparing it, as Judy often did before me. It was family time, when we sat together and discussed our days. Today, I knew, would be different. As I entered the house, I went straight to the bathroom to wash my hands, avoiding my usual kiss for both Judy and Beth. I didn't want to risk anything. At the dinner table, Beth chatted animatedly about her first weeks at college. She mentioned a friend coming over to study, asking if we could handle the dishes tonight. I agreed, telling her to go ahead and enjoy her time. She was such a good kid. I felt a pang of pride, despite the turmoil I was feeling. Once Beth left, I turned to Judy and asked how her day had been. She replied it was uneventful, avoiding any mention of her failed blood donation attempt. I fixed her with a steady gaze and said, "Judy, would you say trust and honesty are crucial in a marriage?" She looked puzzled. "Why are you asking me this, Jim? What's the matter?" "Just answer the question, and I'll explain later," I insisted. "Okay, I'll play along," she said. "Yes, I believe trust and honesty are the foundations of a marriage." I wanted to keep it almost like a game, so I said, "At work today, one of my colleagues asked if we believe our spouses would lie about important matters. Most said they trust their spouses to be truthful." Judy asked what I had said. I mentioned that we have a strong marriage and can discuss our issues openly, and I hoped you would always be honest with me." Judy replied, "Jim, I would never lie to you. I told her, if you lied to me, I wouldn't be able to trust you again. A marriage without trust is doomed." Then I asked, "So, do you have any secrets you need to confess? I'm ready to listen." She hesitated before saying, "No, Jim, I don't have any secrets." I pressed on, "By the way, Judy, I was planning to donate blood today. Did you go as well?" She looked nervous and said, "I went, but they told me my iron levels were too low this time. I couldn't donate." I revealed they wouldn't take mine either. Something about the possibility of my wife having HIV. Judy gasped, "Oh my God, I didn't know they would inform you. I'm so sorry." "Trust and honesty, Judy," I said. "I gave you a chance to tell me the truth, and you still hid it from me. Who did you sleep with that you're willing to risk our marriage and possibly infect us with diseases? Please, Jim, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. It will never happen again, I promise." "Who was it?" I demanded. "I'll go to your office and ask everyone if you don't tell me." Judy sobbed and begged for forgiveness, revealing it was Bob Hawkins, a salesman at her work. He had been flirting with her and eventually convinced her to have an affair. She said he would be leaving soon and that he was a terrible lover, just sex with no connection. Judy pleaded, "Jim, I'm so sorry. This was a one-time mistake. I promise I'll make it up to you. Please forgive me." "Judy," I said, "we both agreed that trust and honesty are essential for our marriage. You broke both. Even after I gave you a chance to come clean, you lied. Now I can't trust you. Our marriage is over. I hope for our sake that the condom was enough to protect us from HIV." Judy collapsed on the couch, crying, while I packed a couple of suitcases. I told her we could file for divorce without assigning blame. We both had good jobs and could split our assets evenly. She could handle Beth, and I'd cover her college expenses. I told her she needed to explain things to Beth, as it was her responsibility. I'd contact my lawyer, who would handle the legalities. As I drove away, tears streamed down my face. I was holding it together outwardly, but inside, I was shattered. 18 years of marriage were crumbling because of a single, foolish affair. I booked a room in a budget motel for a week, hoping that by then I'd be in a better state to figure out my next steps. I called my boss, saying I had personal matters to handle and wouldn't be back until next Monday. He was understanding and said he'd see me then. I searched for Bob Hawkins' address and called his home. His wife answered, and when I claimed to be from the health department needing to speak with him, she said he was out meeting a friend. I told her Bob had HIV and was spreading it, which left her shocked and concerned. She insisted I must have the wrong person, describing Bob as a family man. I apologized and suggested she speak to him about it when he returned. I went to the local pub, finding it nearly empty. I approached a man in one of the booths and asked if he was Bob Hawkins. He confirmed he was. I told him I needed to speak with him outside, and he agreed, leaving the woman behind. As we stepped into the parking lot, I used an old pair of brass knuckles I had. I didn't speak, just pummeled him until he was barely conscious. I kicked him twice, targeting his groin, and then hit him in the jaw, probably breaking it. I knew I was risking jail time, but it felt necessary. After leaving him battered and bruised, I returned to the motel, cleaned up, and made sure there was no trace of blood. The next day, news reports revealed a man had been severely beaten in the parking lot of a pub, with no witnesses coming forward. The victim had multiple broken ribs and a broken jaw, and his mouth was wired shut. I met with my lawyer and a doctor the following day. Beth called me in the morning, her voice filled with concern. "Dad, where are you? Mom's been acting really strange lately. She's been crying and seems really upset. I don't know what's going on." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "Beth, I'm not sure how to say this, but your mom and I have had some serious issues. It's best if you talk to her directly about how she's feeling. I promise we'll sort things out as best as we can." After the call, I focused on the meetings. My lawyer was thorough and understanding, laying out the steps for the divorce proceedings. We discussed the division of assets, custody arrangements for Beth, and potential support payments. The process seemed straightforward, but I knew it would be emotionally taxing. The doctor, a compassionate woman, discussed the importance of getting tested regularly and staying healthy. She assured me that while the risk was lower due to the protection used, It was crucial to follow up with regular checkups. By the time I left the office, it was late afternoon. I felt numb, but there was a strange sense of relief in having taken these initial steps. I drove back to the motel, my thoughts tangled with the events of the past few days. That evening, I decided to call Judy. Judy, I've spoken to my lawyer and set things in motion for our divorce. I hope you're prepared to explain everything to Beth. I'll be back to sort out the final details. Judy's voice was barely a whisper. Jim, I'm so sorry. I never wanted any of this to happen. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me, even if it takes time. I sighed. Judy, forgiveness will take time. Right now, I need to focus on moving forward and dealing with everything that's happened. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. I met with Beth to discuss her feelings and the changes ahead. She was understandably distressed, but showed resilience. We talked about the importance of keeping communication open and supportive during this transition. Meanwhile, the news about Bob Hawkins continued to circulate. He was reportedly recovering from his injuries, but the attack had left him with significant damage. I followed the news, feeling a mix of guilt and satisfaction that justice in some form had been served. I began to make plans for my future. The week at the motel allowed me to reflect on the past and think about what I wanted moving forward. I considered starting fresh, perhaps relocating and focusing on my career and personal growth. The idea of a new beginning, while daunting, also felt like a chance to rebuild. Returning home was a difficult step. The house was filled with the remnants of our shared life, photos, mementos, and memories. I began sorting through things, deciding what to keep and what to let go. Each item was a reminder of what once was, but also a symbol of the new path I had to forge. In the midst of it all, I had one final conversation with Judy. Jim, I know things are tough right now. I just want you to know that I am deeply sorry for everything. I hope that in time, we can both find some peace. I nodded, acknowledging her words. Judy, this is the end of a chapter for us. I hope we both find the peace we need to move forward. With the legal and personal matters beginning to settle, I started looking forward to a new chapter in my life. It was clear that the road ahead would be challenging, but I was determined to face it with resilience. The pain of betrayal would linger, but the promise of a fresh start offered a glimmer of hope amidst the turmoil. As I prepared to leave for a new city, I took one last look at the house. The memories of the past were bittersweet, but I was ready to embrace the future, learning from the trials and hoping to build something better from the ashes of what once was. And so, with a heavy heart but a hopeful spirit, I stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next. As the days turned into weeks, the changes began to settle in. I settled into a small apartment in a new city, a place far from the memories of my past. The transition was challenging, but it offered a fresh perspective and a chance to rebuild my life. The apartment was modest, but it was mine, a blank canvas where I could start anew. Beth adjusted to the new routine as well. We kept in regular touch, and though the distance was hard, our conversations helped bridge the gap. She was resilient, finding solace in her friends and school activities. I made sure she knew she was loved and supported, despite the upheaval. Work became a focus for me, a way to channel my energy into something positive. I immersed myself in new projects, finding satisfaction in professional accomplishments and personal growth. Each success was a step forward, a reminder that I could shape my future despite the challenges of the past. Months passed and the wounds began to heal. Judy and I maintained a respectful distance, focusing on the well-being of Beth and our respective lives. We communicated occasionally, mainly about logistics and co-parenting, but the emotional intensity had faded, replaced by a pragmatic understanding. One day, as I walked through a local park, enjoying the simple pleasures of life, I reflected on how far I had come. The park was filled with people enjoying the sunshine, families playing, and individuals taking a moment to breathe. It was a scene of tranquility, a stark contrast to the chaos of my past. In that moment, I felt a sense of peace. The pain of betrayal and the struggles of the past had left their mark, but they no longer defined me. I had faced the storm, and now I was standing on the other side, ready to embrace the future with hope and optimism. The new chapter of my life was still unfolding. There were uncertainties ahead, but I welcomed them with a sense of readiness. The journey had taught me resilience, and the promise of new beginnings was both exhilarating and comforting. As I looked towards the horizon, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Life had given me a second chance, and I was determined to make the most of it. The road ahead would be filled with both challenges and opportunities, but I faced it with a heart full of hope and a spirit ready to embrace whatever came next. And so, with a deep breath and a steady heart, I took the first steps into this new chapter, knowing that the future held endless possibilities. The story of the past was now a part of my journey, a reminder of where I had been and a guide for where I was going. With each step forward, I embraced the lessons learned and looked towards the horizon, ready to write the next pages of my life's story.